The melee class has a few subclasses, including the yo-yo, which I've already beat on For the Worthy. Next in line, considering I'm Australian, I thought it would be appropriate to do boomerangs only. For the Worthy Legendary Mode contact hits do so much damage, and all enemies have more health, and bosses have different AI and sizes, so only using a boomerang from the melee class is going to be pretty difficult. Will the range of 16 different types of boomerangs, 6 in hard mode, carry me throughout the game, or will they come back just to remind me how bad this idea was? Now, the first boomerang that I can get is the wooden boomerang. I actually can't craft this one. Unlike the wooden bow, wooden sword, you have to find this in a wooden chest. So I kept looking around my world trying to find one, and before I knew it, it was nighttime, and I just kept dying to enemies since I don't even have a weapon. Since it's nighttime though, I was looking for a fallen star, which will help us out later. Now that I have one, I started digging down, and I quickly found another wooden chest, which did contain a wooden boomerang. And just like that, with a wooden boomerang and a fallen star, ever since 1.4, enchanted boomerangs are craftable with a fallen star and wooden boomerang, which gives us a big upgrade straight away. The next thing I did was I headed into the ice biome. Down here I managed to find some life crystals, some ores, and eventually, after a lot of exploring in the ice biome, I finally found the ice boomerang, which is an upgrade from the enchanted boomerang. Now with my new weapon, I wanted to find another boomerang, which is found in the glowing mushroom biome, specifically from spore bats. So I was just sitting here waiting, killing spore bats, hoping that it will drop. At a 2.5% drop rate, it's relatively rare, but it finally dropped, giving me the shroomerang. Now in 1.4.4, which was a while ago at this point, they added the trimerang, which is a combination of the enchanted boomerang, shroomerang, and ice boomerang. It does 21 damage, but the best part about it is you can throw 3 at a time, which really helps considering if you miss a boomerang normally, it's really punishing. But for this one, it's not as punishing. So now we're pretty kitted up. Full health, full platinum armor, trimerang, magiluminescence. So I spelunked into the underground desert. But before I could do much down here, an evil presence decides to watch over me. Now with my current setup, I think I can definitely beat the Eye of Cthulhu. Now I'm For the Worthy, the Eye of Cthulhu has more health and does a lot of contact damage, but apart from that, the only difference that the Eye has is it shoots out a bunch of these servants, way more than usual. But the trimerang is doing work. It's doing some good damage. It's taking out the servants much better than just a single boomerang would be able to. And the damage to the Eye is respectable. I just keep on the run, utilizing my horizontal movement, which actually bunches up the servants into one spot. Once the Eye is in its third phase, dashing like crazy, it gets a little hectic. I'm under half health. And then off screen, the Eye of Cthulhu gets hit by a fallen star, bringing it down to 300 health all of a sudden. I don't think I even realized this at the time. I'm only seeing that now. But because of that, we easily defeated the Eye of Cthulhu with a bit of health left. I then headed back to the underground desert, getting myself a bar statue, an ancient chisel, and a magic conch. Everything I could ever need. And a snake charmer's flute, because that is an incredibly good item, very useful. My next course of action was to head over to the jungle, specifically the underground jungle, getting spores and stingers. Now this wasn't easy considering For the Worthy underground jungle is absolutely insane, but after being patient, healing back up just to go back down to no health, and finding a lava charm in a dead man's chest, I got all I needed to make the thorn chakram. Now this doesn't shoot 3 boomerangs like the trimerang, so the trimerang is still helpful in its own way. The thorn chakram does more damage and poisons, but it is less forgiving if you miss it. And since the goblin army arrived, I was able to test out the thorn chakram on them, and it was doing pretty decent. Damage still isn't amazing. Crowd damage is definitely our weakness here, but it was finally defeated. And when it was raining, I found a gold worm on the ground. And underground, I found the goblin tinkerer. And now once I find the shimmer, which takes absolutely no time, it was really close to the beach, I can shimmer forge some accessories so that I can get warding without spending a ton of money. I can also shimmer forge my boomerang since the trimerang and thorn chakram are crafted. I then went over to the underground crimson, clearing out an arena for the brain of Cthulhu. Now this wasn't going too bad off start, but then I went straight into a spider, knocking me into the brain and all the creepers, which did a ton of damage. The enemies just kept spawning, which was really annoying, and I died. For the Worthy, brain of Cthulhu is really hard. So I did a better job at clearing out my arena since my arena was not very good to begin with. And then I spawned in the brain again. It didn't go any better this time. So I spawned him in once again. We're gonna beat it this time for sure. I take a bunch of damage really quickly. I'm down to to 100 health, and then I get hit again and again and again, and I'm dead. But it dropped some tissue samples. Now with the Deathbringer pickaxe, we can spelunk straight into the lava, digging up a bunch of hellstone, combining it with some good old obsidian at a hellforge that I definitely didn't forget to grab, and craft us some molten armor. Not only that, if we're able to find another wooden boomerang, which we do manage to find just below the surface, we can combine that with a star to make an enchanted boomerang, and now with the enchanted boomerang, we can combine that with hellstone bars to make the flamerang. Now we have a big upgrade. Debatably the best boomerang in pre-hard mode. It actually has 49 base damage, putting it at the 5th highest damaging boomerang, above a couple hard mode boomerangs. The downside though is it only shoots one. It's one boomerang, which honestly isn't great. If you miss with it, you're in trouble. We brought this fight back. We actually managed to kill all the creepers. Them dropping hearts has helped us a lot getting our health back up. And once it's in second phase, it flips us upside down, which is obviously pretty annoying, but luckily with our hellfire debuff, it sets the correct brain on fire, so I know exactly which one it is. But towards the end of the fight, I actually get hit twice by the brain, getting me under half health. I decided to switch to the trimerang towards the end because it can hit the brain more consistently, and just like that, we finish off the brain. And that didn't actually give us much except for the Brain of Confusion accessory, which is fantastic in its own regard. I then spawned in the King Slime. If we can beat the brain, I'm sure we can beat the King Slime with no issues. The Flamerang does big damage, but I like to switch around to the Trimerang every now and then. The Flamerang does huge damage to this guy. He's quickly losing health here, and its range is pretty good for a melee weapon, so I can keep my distance from it. And once it's small, I switch over to the Trimerang because I can hit him more consistently. And the King Slime is defeated. And then a Blood Moon rises, and I'm able to get a money trough and a shark tooth necklace. The next thing on my list was to fight another boss, and that is the Queen Bee. I created a relatively small arena for the Queen, and then I spawned her in. Now there's a massive waterfall of honey, or a honey fall, which kind of blocks off a whole side of my arena. Honey falls so slowly that it's gonna be here basically the whole fight. But I can just jump in the honey, which actually negates the poison debuff, which is very helpful for the Queen Bee fight. The Flamerang's doing some big damage, especially when the bee is just sitting still. I just utilize the platforms and my grappling hook to dodge the Queen's dashes. As with basically all my challenges, I'm not using a Shield of Cthulhu here because it's not a boomerang. One of the most useful fight with the shield is this one, since you can bash into the Queen, but we'll make it work without it. She's getting pretty low here, but it does get a lot harder towards the end. Her dashes become much more erratic and unpredictable and harder to dodge. I'm switching between the Trimerang and the Flamerang. Sometimes I just want that consistency. Luckily, I dodge a dash towards the end, but I'm getting super low, but so is the Queen Bee. And once again, I kill the Queen Bee, and the Queen Bee kills me at the same time. We'll call it a draw. I then headed over to the fluorescent pink dungeon, and the dungeon entrance was actually buried by sand. So I had to dig my way in through the back, and I couldn't find the old man anywhere. So I decided to dig through this sand. Maybe he's been buried alive. And good thing I came just in time, because he's about to suffocate to death. I don't really know how he lived in there. I guess it's the curse. The curse allowed him to live. And then I built an arena for Skeletron. Skeletron hits me right off bat for quite a bit of damage. I mean, it's really hard to dodge it in For the Worthy. We have to address the elephant in the room. His skull is massive, and I'm just getting tossed like a green salad, bro. Like, I'm down to 100 health off rip. And something I was really struggling with was hitting those hands with my Flamerang. Now I have to preface that I did take a long break between this Queen Bee fight and Skeletron fight. My wife and I had our firstborn child, so I was a bit busy to be playing Terraria. So I'm a bit rusty, and I'm getting whacked by this freaking loser boss, and I can't hit anything with my Flamerang, but I did manage to bring it back. I'm back to basically full health after not getting hit much at all. My honey bucket coming in clutch, and around halfway through the night, I've destroyed both of Skeletron's hands, and now the Dark Casters are spawning, which throw a whole nother spanner in the work. Water bolts being thrown at me while Skeletron's spinning its skull at me, and then the homing skulls as well as the water bolts. It's kind of crazy. And stupidly, I walk straight into a Dark Caster as Skeletron's spinning at me, and I just get comboed into oblivion. And now I've been turned into Long Pig. What does that even mean? Then a second goblin army arrives, which is annoying, but I mean, it's been long enough since I've played this game that I guess it's not that annoying, and now I have a Flamerang, so I'm not too tilted. It's fine. I sent my platform for Skeletron a bit more, and hopefully this time we can beat it. But there's also something different in my hotbar, and what that is I added the Thorn Chakram. So I have the Flamerang, Trimerang, and Thorn Chakram in my hotbar. You might be wondering why I would need anything more than just one boomerang. Now with with my own brain, my own little noggin, I came up with a strategy. With specifically pre-hard mode boomerangs, most of them are single throw, such as the flamerang. You throw one boomerang and you have to wait for it to come back. Now, an important piece of information with boomerangs is you can throw them out and switch to something else while it's coming back. That boomerang still does damage, it still returns to you. For example, I throw out my flamerang and switch to my trimerang, which means I can throw 4 boomerangs at once. Or I could throw out my flamerang and then my thorn chakram and then some trimerangs, and I'm throwing out a bunch of boomerangs all at once. I call this boomerang juggling. Now, is this just CJ DEATHBOT longing for summoner class and basically putting whip stacking into the melee class? Maybe. Low-key, yeah. Look, I just like whip stacking a lot. It's fun, and this was pretty fun. I enjoyed juggling the thorn chakram and the flamerang, and I'm pretty sure I was doing more damage because of it. Now, for some reason, once both the hands were destroyed with Skeletron, there was like no dark casters. I mean, I made my arena way bigger, so I don't know. I don't really know what's happening. Legit, for a good period, there were no dark casters, no water bolts being thrown at me. It was chill, man. Eventually, they started spawning back, and I just killed them with no issues. A couple of them were shooting at me, but I had enough distance that I could easily dodge it. And with my epic gamer moves of boomerang juggling, I finally defeated Skeletron, which is honestly a pretty decent hurdle in For the Worthy sometimes. Now, in the dungeon, there's actually something very important I want to do, and that's unbind the mechanic. It's for multiple reasons. For now, we're just getting a wrench and a quarter-second timer. Along with that, I also get a cobalt shield, a shadow key, and an alchemy station. And then a third goblin army approaches. This is lovely. I mean, this is exactly what I wanted, a third one. Now I'm starting to get a little tilted. Who wants to do 2 goblin armies in one session? But it didn't take that long. Then with my wrench and quarter-second timer, I set up an imp statue to spawn a bunch of imps for me so that I could get some fire imp banners. This will be pretty critical for the next boss, the Wall of Flesh. Now, for the Wall of Flesh, I need to create a bridge. So building a bridge to work, I got to. Now, for the Worthy Legendary Mode, building a bridge is really freaking hard and annoying. There are so many enemies. Every demon is a voodoo demon. Hellpats actually hit like a freight train. It's insane. And you can't even freaking see them half the time because the background is the same color as them. Like 140 damage from a Hellbat. It's just lovely. I have a full defense build. And then there's serpents that spawn. Don't even get me started on serpents. This was just, well, hell, honestly. It's appropriate for where I am. But eventually, I had a bridge long enough to satisfy my needs. There's got to be a better way to phrase that. And I placed fire imp banners all along it. Now, I could do a funnel, but I want to try and see if I can beat it without one. I throw the guy voodoo doll into the lava, spawning the Wall of Flesh, and right off bat, there are fire imps spawning, throwing fireballs at me. Luckily, the banners are helping, but there's so much for me to shoot at. I have to throw my boomerangs at the hungries, and then I throw it at the imps, and all the while, I'm not even getting a hit in on the Wall of Flesh, and the hungries are growing back basically as quick as I'm killing them. I was utilizing my boomerang juggling technique, which is working pretty well considering, but I didn't get far on my bridge before I was low enough that I just teleported home and accepted defeat. Like, I barely did any damage to the wall there. But I realized there's an extra boomerang that I haven't got from pre-hard mode. If you remember a bit ago, I said that the mechanic had another use, and that is me killing her. Yeah, I have to kill her a bunch of times in the hopes of getting the combat wrench, which I finally do get, our final pre-hard mode boomerang. And the good thing about the combat wrench is it pierces, unlike other boomerangs. So with this new weapon, I challenged the Wall of Flesh again, and hopefully the combat wrench helps here and we'll be able to do some more damage to the wall since it has some pierce. It definitely was better. I was killing the hungries more consistently, but the damage to the wall itself was pretty awful. And very quickly, I died to the wall, doing barely any damage to it. So after that horrendous display, there was only one thing I could think of doing, and that's a funnel. I didn't want to have to do the funnel. I wanted to do this legitimately, but there's no way I can beat that boss if that's the amount of damage I'm doing in the early phases of the wall, let alone when it speeds up and the hungries do more damage. So now the bridge that I built is basically useless, and I have to spend the next few hours of my life digging through these hellstone houses and ash blocks and lava. Oh my gosh, this just took so freaking long, especially with enemies jumping me 24/7. I used dirt bombs to make the process a bit faster, funneled my funnel. Now this funnel might not be long enough, but I want to test to see if it'll work. So I spawn in the Wall of Flesh and quickly realize, first of all, that these imps are still a big issue. They're doing so much damage even with the banners up, and the Wall wall didn't even funnel for some reason. So I made the funnel itself thicker. It finally funneled correctly, but I was still getting pantsed by all the projectiles. So the best solution I could find was doing an alternating dart trap to hit the fire imp so that they don't shoot the fireballs. It basically stun locks them and makes them pretty much useless. And on the next fight, it was going pretty well. The darts were stopping the imps from shooting at me for the most part, but I took some big damage and died very quickly. I tried it again, but while my smart cursor right-clicked through the guide voodoo doll into the lava, I accidentally disabled one of the dart trap cycles. So the fire imps were hitting me the whole time. I did do a few thousand damage, but yeah, I'm just dead. This time the dart traps are working correctly, but I've taken so much damage here. So this fight is not going great, but I am regenerating a bit. I'm cycling between Thorn Chakram, Flamerang, and the Combat Wrench. All three of them are doing some good DPS to the Hungries and the wall, but eventually I ran out of funnel space before it was even nearly halfway dead. So I got back to work on the funnel, which once again just took absolutely forever. Once that's done, I spawned in the wall of flesh again. It's just more of the same fight, killing off the Hungry and attacking the wall. I'm able to do pretty consistent damage, switching between the Flamerang, Thorn Chakram, and Combat Wrench, kind of flailing them around. It's not really a rhythm to my madness. I'm just pressing 1, 2, and 3 a bunch, basically. But the wall is getting faster now, and a lot lower. It gets down to under 10,000 health. We're doing pretty dang good here, and we still have a decent amount of funnel left. I just keep hitting it. The Hungries are luckily getting knockbacked enough that they're really not a problem at all, and I'm able to hit the wall itself with the boomerangs. But once the wall gets down to under 3,000 health, I do run out of funnel space, and I accidentally grapple right onto the minecart track, which gets me killed instantly. But we got really close there. If we just extend our funnel a little bit, I think we've got this in the bag. But I was kind of running out of blocks to build with, so I started building with ice blocks. If it works, it works. It's a block. So I spawn in the wall again. Once it's getting down to the under 10,000 health range, I mean, I'm full health. We're doing good. There's no real issues. But once it's under 5,000 health, I do make it to the extended bridge that I made. So we've done less health this time than we did last time. Once I get to the end of the bridge, I actually put on auto pause just for a second to put on my boots so that I can get out of the funnel and not die. The wall's under 3,000 health and I have no funnel left. I also don't have a heal and I'm under 300 health. So I'm just switching between the Flamerang and the Combat Wrench, hitting the wall as much as I can before it catches up to me. It's super low, and luckily by the skin of my teeth, I dodge with the Brain of Cthulhu, which completely saves me. I would have died 100%. It then drags me away so I get more distance, and just before it hits me contact again, I kill the wall of flesh, putting us in hard mode. That was crazy. So we're in hard mode. There are a grand total of 6 boomerangs that we can get, 3 of which we can get right now. One of those is the Sergeant United shield, or Captain America's shield. And spoiler alert, I did not get it this playthrough as much as I would have liked to get it. The traveling merchant just didn't sell it. I went over to the Underground Crimson, smashing some altars, and then did the hard mode ore grind. And after a long time of mining, with my really fast mining speed, I do find enough titanium to throw into the shimmer and make a full set of adamantite armor. And I then found my second golden worm in the playthrough. Remember how I told you that I took a long break between recordings? Well, I threw the gold worm in the shimmer thinking I hadn't gotten a gummy worm before. I tried to eat it and realized I'd already found a gold worm in this playthrough. Look, becoming a dad took up a lot of my time. Terraria wasn't even on my mind for a while. You gotta forgive me, okay? It's then a full moon, so I farmed some werewolves and some mimics, and right before the night ends, I get a warding moon charm. So the best thing that I found I could do is spawn in a blood moon with the bloody tear I had, sit in a hole using my combat wrench and flamerang, and just wait for clowns to spawn. The clown has a 10% chance to drop the banana ring, which is a really good hard mode boomerang. On top of that, the blood moon also boosts spawn rates for mimics, so through all of this waiting for clowns to spawn and hoping that it drops a 10% drop, I'm getting a ton of money and all the drops I'd ever need from a mimic, and clown after clown and blood moon after blood moon, it was not dropping the banana ring. Now luckily these days you only need 1 banana ring. Back in the day it used to stack and it was a lower chance to drop. Things are a lot better than they used to be. Luckily after every blood moon I was able to get a bloody tear so I can spawn it back again, which saved me a lot of time of not having to sleep and wait for a blood moon. But after over an hour of farming blood moons and clowns, I saw one throwing bombs in a hole, so I dug to it, killed it, and it dropped not only the KO cannon at a 20% drop rate, but also the banana ring at a 10% drop rate. So we finally got it, and yeah, yeah, it shoots a bunch of bananas. It's really good. It's not even necessarily good for a boomerang. Like, it's just a good melee weapon all around, especially with the amount of range it has. And also, after all of that, I managed to collect almost 30 platinum coins, which is a ridiculous amount of money that I'll never use all of, especially when I'm getting the best reforge on one reforge roll. I then killed a wyvern, and then I found my third gold worm on the playthrough. Although, I shouldn't say I found it, because I'm finding out right now that it popped up on my lifeform analyzer and I didn't even notice it. And with the frozen feather, I make some frozen wings. And then one night, while I'm farming some souls of night and ichor, the game tells me it's going to be a terrible night, which means that the twins are going to spawn. At least I was pretty sure it was the twins, if my memory wasn't failing me. And indeed, the twins did spawn. Now, on For the Worthy, as per usual, they're very tiny. They're small, they're harder to hit, but with the Bananerang, I am able to hit them much easier than I'd be able to with whips or true melee, or even a yo-yo. I start off by targeting out Spasmatism. Now, when I'm kiting them, flying up and down, I do have to lead the bananas a bit, otherwise they'll miss completely. But when I'm hitting it consistently, it's doing pretty good damage. Like, nothing crazy, but for ranged melee, it's really good. Like, we're talking Shadow Flame Knife level, maybe better. I don't know. So it wasn't going too bad. I did get hit by Spasmatism's flames a few times, and that debuff does hurt quite a bit. Once Spasmatism is finally in second phase, that's when things can get crazy in this fight, but with the King Slime mount, I am able to change my direction very quickly, which is especially good when Spaz is dashing at me. I'm doing a pretty good job at kiting Spaz here. I'm actually not getting caught in his flames at all, and not getting hit by the dashes, and he's getting very low now. I did get hit by a dash towards the end, but there goes Spasmatism, and now it's just Rhett. Rhett really is no problem at all now that Link's dead. And just like that, the twins have been pretty easily defeated, although it did take quite a while. That was a pretty long fight. Ranged melee weapons typically don't do crazy damage, but they are typically much safer than something like the sword. Now, there is a boomerang that I can make post-mex, but it's specifically post-destroyer. And what's annoying about that is the idea of the Bananerang against the destroyer does not really seem that good. I then make an artificial corruption biome to fish up some Eboncoin for some extra damage, and I also spawned in the Eater of Worlds. Now, this fight was actually harder than I'd like to admit. The Vile Spit on the surface is crazy, and I didn't really have an arena for it or anything, and the damage was doing quite a bit of damage. You know, the damage was damaging, but I did manage to just beat it. I then got to work on a mob farm. After getting all the dimensions correct and building it to my best ability, math is not my strong suit, but we did it in the end. I placed down a bunch of Pearlstone, and this way I could kill a bunch of hallowed enemies and farm Souls of Light. I actually just put a heavy thing on my mouse while I was AFK tending to my newborn baby, and I came back with enough Souls of Light to make a bunch of Keys of Light. The Hallowed Mimic wasn't too hard. I mean, its patterns are pretty easy when you have a lot of space. The first one drops a Crystal Vial Shard, which is obviously garbage. Second one also drops a Crystal Vial Shard, then a Daedalus Stormbow, then another Crystal Vial Shard, then I stupidly died, and then I finally got the Flying Knife. Now, before someone says it, I know someone in the comments will say it, "Oh, that's a knife, that's not a boomerang." While I get it, it's a flying knife, it doesn't even feel that much like a boomerang. If you look on the wiki, it specifically says that it's a hard mode boomerang. Not only that, it's on the boomerang section of the Terraria wiki, the official Terraria wiki. It also behaves very differently to your typical boomerang. But the main reason I got the flying knife was to fight the destroyer. This weapon pierces, and when I took the flying knife to the destroyer who was coiled up in a ball, it did big damage. But unfortunately, I got contact hit by a probe and then a nimbus, and I was getting pretty low. But after healing, I'm not too bad, and the probes drop hearts, which is great. Now, the Bananerang is really good for taking out the probes, since the flying knife is kind of inaccurate and hard to hit them with. Although the flying knife does have more range than the Bananerang, which can be helpful. If you quickly move back and forth, left and right, the flying knife will somewhat stay in a straight line, which can be quite good for leading through the destroyer's segments. But I also tried it on the floor, and it was working really well against the destroyer, doing some big damage. Now, obviously, there are better weapons against the destroyer. Tome of Infinite Wisdom clears this thing. But for a boomerang, this is the best we're gonna get. And this fight was long. The destroyer has an insane amount of health, but the probe's hearts were keeping me alive. Towards the end of the knife, cutting it a bit close, the destroyer was finally defeated. And now with Souls of Might and Hallowed Bars, I can make the Light Disc. Now, this is also another boomerang that you could stack. I think you used to be able to stack them up to 5. Now, I remember way back in the day, the Light Disc being one of the best weapons you could get. This was was when I like first started playing Terraria. I have fond memories of the light disc, so this is a weapon that I'm going to enjoy using, and to test it out, we're fighting Skeletron Prime. Now, there might be a pretty important detail that I completely forgot about with this fight. On For the Worthy, Skeletron Prime's bombs destroy tiles. It's been too long since I've done a For the Worthy playthrough that I completely overlooked it. So this fight is significantly harder because all I have is a little platform that I can't really use or else it'll get blown up. So I'm actually using the natural terrain here, which is getting bombed and leaving holes, which gets me stuck constantly. But luckily the light disc is doing work, man. Like, it's honestly really good for the range it has and the damage it's doing. It honestly impressed me. It's really good. He's now under half health, but the terrain's getting worse and worse. The ground is getting bombed constantly. I have nowhere safe to step, but luckily Prime is like the easiest mech boss of the three. So even without a platform, things are really not going too bad. I am focusing just the head here, not really the hands. With a cross necklace, as I've said many times on this channel, this fight is so much easier. If you're not using a cross necklace for this fight, I would recommend it. Even substitute an obsidian shield for a cross necklace. Trust me, it's fantastic. And just like that, Skeletron Prime is defeated, and that's all three mech bosses defeated. I now can finally make a full set of hallowed armor, and I fought the destroyer again because I didn't have enough hallowed bars to make a pickaxe axe. I then scoured the jungle for life fruits, which didn't take too long because I slept in the bed just to make sure that they had time to spawn. So now with maxed 500 HP, I made a mechanical glove and turned that into a fire gauntlet, began on the Osagoth tunnel, if you know, you know, and spawned in Plantera. Now the first phase arena that I had was quite small. I mean, there's really not much to work with here, but you don't need much to work with first phase. Plantera is an absolute breeze, and Light Disc is doing a pretty decent job. I did get contact hit by a hook, which did a lot of damage, but I regenerated it back up, basically back to full, and I dropped down into the Osagoth tunnel a bit early just to make sure I'm here for second phase, and it's going pretty smooth, just shooting my light discs up while she falls down. I'm not really getting hit much. I'm using my wings to glide down. I should have got a feather fall potion here because it actually helps a lot. I then got to the bottom of my Osagoth tunnel. At the bottom of the Osagoth tunnel though, there were two skeleton archers waiting for me, which was very annoying because they broke my holy protection and did 90 damage to me. And I did manage to break her ankles and go back up, but she did get enraged for a second. She actually dashed at me, which ended up hurting me a lot. So I'm more on the run here, just trying to get my health back up. But by the time I'm back to the first phase arena, I have to break her ankles again, which is a bit too difficult, and I get hit by her tentacle for 200 damage and I'm just dead. Contact hits are so brutal in this. I spawned her in again, but it really didn't go much better this time. But this third time, I make it to the bottom of the tunnel and I do manage to break her ankles. Kind of. A tentacle did hit me for a lot of damage, and then she gets enraged once again, which does a lot of damage to me, but at least I'm over half health. Once I get back up to first phase arena, she's down to under 5,000 health, so not much health left. If I can hit her enough, I won't even have to go back down into the tunnel, and that's exactly what I do. Plantera is defeated before I have to break her ankles once again. Now, Plantera herself doesn't drop anything for us for boomerangs, but what she does do is unlocks post-Plantera dungeon. So since I have a mob grinder, I decided to change it into a dungeon biome, spawning in all the little guys, and I'm able to kill them through a hole with my flying knife. And what I'm really hoping for is paladin spawns. Now, one does spawn, and I'm using my light disc through the hole to kill it. Unfortunately though, it doesn't drop anything for me, which was a bit of a recurring theme. I mean, nothing was really dropping what I wanted it to, until finally one paladin drops both the paladin's shield, which I did want, and the paladin's hammer, which is a boomerang that's really good for piercing and doing damage to multiple enemies at once. But there's still something I want from the dungeon, which is the black belt, and I finally do get it, giving us a dash in the playthrough and our third dodge. I then head over to the ice biome, killing ice tortoises. This was taking forever. It always does. The drop rate is kind of dumb. 2% chance is really annoying. I have to kill on average 50 of them, but that allows us to craft the frozen shield. Now with all of this, there's only really one thing left that we can do. I made it to the lizard temple and started scouring it. It took forever. I forget how freaking large, massive, huge the lizard temple is on For the Worthy. It just goes on forever, and for how hard they make the golem, the idea that typically if you're not hoiking, you have to go through this every time just to attempt the golem once is evil, bro. Once I make it to the golem's room, I realize, okay, this actually isn't too small compared to some For the Worthy golem rooms. rooms, this is actually, I can work with this. It's not that bad. Now with illuminant paint from the paint roller, I can illuminate the walls, which allows me to see the golem much better than I normally would. Still can't see him very well, but it's something. Painting these walls took forever. It always takes forever. It's so annoying. But once it was done, I spawned in the golem, and he's tiny, jumping around like a maniac, his hands flailing around. I do have an obsidian skin potion here to make sure that I'm not getting hit by the fire debuff too much. I'm staying up on my platform, shooting my light discs. It's not going too bad. I am racking up a bit of damage, but the frozen shield does help when I'm under half health. And after a long time, I've finally broken both the golem's fists. So now it's just his head shooting these lasers and the body stomping around. And eventually the head detaches. And this is kind of the hard part of the fight. The head, if I leave myself into it, will do insane contact damage. The lasers really don't do nothing. They can do 50 damage a pop with my frozen shield damage reduction and all my defense and everything. And with the golem down to only 16,000 health, it ends up whittling me down enough to kill me. The fight also took forever. The boomerangs, I'll admit, aren't the best against this boss. The damage isn't fantastic. And the issue is, while normally on like master mode, I would take like no damage from this stuff, on legendary mode, I'm taking so much damage. So the little damage I'm doing isn't paying off through survivability, but at least I can take a few hits, right? I found that the paladin's hammer was working the best against the golem since it hits both the fists and the body. The issue is the paladin's hammer doesn't have very long range. I have to get pretty close to the golem here. Also, I ended up taking out my platform, or most of it, since it was actually messing me up because the golem can jump on the platform and I want him to stay on the ground level. It makes it more predictable. Eventually the head detaches from him again, still using the paladin's hammer even past the fist being destroyed. I could use the light disc, which I do for a bit, but I just like how accurate the paladin's hammer is, how fast it gets sent out. Now what I'm doing is just kind of flying in an arch, going back and forth. It typically dodges the lasers, but there's also the strategy that I do adopt to dash underneath the golem's body. This is a much simpler way of doing this, and I'm still dodging the lasers and everything, and I'm breaking the golem's ankles, which means that it slows down its jumps. If you keep going in one direction, it will get like a lot faster and just land on you. So going the opposite direction of it helps a lot. And I finally, after a long fight, defeat the for the worthy golem. I hate this boss, but the fight isn't freaking over yet, is it? Because we need to get one certain thing from the golem, isn't that right? The best boomerang that I can get, the best one, is dropped by the golem. It is the next weapon I need, which means we need to fight this boss over and over and over again until I get the thing I need. And everyone knows that that is my freaking favorite part of this game. It's freaking grinding the golem, especially when it's this freaking hard on For the Worthy, and I have to just throw myself at it again and again, hoping that this little toddler of a boss, this dumb guy with a huge head, will drop a 14.29% chance weapon. This boss drives me up the freaking wall on master mode, let alone legendary mode. And this is the worst case scenario where I actually need something from the golem. This is my own personal hell. It doesn't get much worse than this. I was up at like 1 AM just grinding golem fights. And as I said before, the damage is not good. These fights are long. I can't hit him very consistently because it's small, and my weaponry does not do that much damage to him. After, I kid you not, 2.5 hours, I finally see the glory of the possessed hatchet fall into my inventory. I'm numb at this point, bro. Like, I was about to crash out. I was so close to crashing out. But boy, it feels good to have this weapon. I actually completely forgot that the possessed hatchet homes in on enemies, and a perfect thing to test on it were the pirates. Now, I did kind of cheese this. I went into a hole, but look, it homes in on the enemy, which is the first and only boomerang that actually does this. And I then defeat a flying Dutchman. The paladin's hammer was actually perfect for this. Once it was daytime, I took on the solar eclipse. Now, my damage here was actually not that great. The paladin's hammer was pretty good at the crowd control, but it was hard to get that close to these enemies without taking a ton of damage. The possessed hatchet was actually really good against Mothron, with it being homing, and I really didn't have to think about it. I could even aim away from Mothron and it would still hit it. And the reason I was doing the solar eclipse eclipse was for a Neptune's shell, which I got very quickly, and a moonstone, which I did manage to get on the first solar eclipse. And once it had passed, I made the celestial shell. And I then spawned in the pumpkin moon. This was specifically for one thing, and luckily it was from the morning wood, which meant I don't actually have to kill a pumpkin. I'd say luckily because my damage is pretty horrendous here. I am barely killing morning wood in time, let alone a pumpkin. And one morning wood that I killed dropped the witch's broom and spooky hook, which is fantastic. That's all I needed. And now with my flight situation sorted, I mainly got the witch's broom for one specific fight, and that is the Empress of Light. With the witch's broom, I can swap out boots and wings and master ninja gear if I want to, all for survivability and damage accessories. And I mean, the witch's broom is just crazy for this fight. This boss is intended as a bullet hell, and being able to move omnidirectionally, infinitely, really just helps a ton. And I really don't like fighting the Empress without the witch's broom, honestly, anymore. Now, the possessed hatchet is working like a charm. Since the boss moves so fast, I can just throw the homing weapons. I don't even have to think about my placement of my cursor. I just have to focus on the projectiles. But I have this boss so memorized at this point, it was actually crazy. Even with the little damage that the possessed hatchet was doing and how long this fight was actually taking, I didn't get hit in the whole first phase. Now, once it became second phase, it started to get a bit harder. Specifically, I got hit by the everlasting rainbow while weaving the sun dance. That was the first time I got hit in this fight, and the boss only has like a quarter health left. I then got hit again by the sun dance, and apart from that, I was freaking full health, barely got hit on this fight, and that's the Empress of Light defeated. And all I really wanted from that was the soaring insignia. If I got the wings, I got the wings, but I didn't. And right after that, with the soaring insignia and a pair of wings, I took on Duke Fishron. The possessed hatchet is pretty good here. I can just keep my distance, and the hatchet just homes in on him. Another really fast moving boss. Homing weapons help a lot against fast moving bosses. So yeah, the damage, not great. It's a long fight. We're in here for the long haul, but at least I can play pretty safe. Duke gets into second phase. It gets a bit scarier, but honestly, nothing I haven't done before. It was no problem with Master Ninja Gear and Soaring Insignia. Really no problems. I actually realize now, I don't know if I did this on purpose, but I didn't even buff for this fight. I just really didn't need the buffs on this. But that does mean I'm doing like 30% less damage. Once it gets to its final phase, I do get hit, but I'm counting the dashes, which does make it easier. Sometimes the dash is just a bit awkward, so I do get hit. And the contact damage is insane on Legendary Mode. I have full beetle armor at this point with shell. So this is like the most damage reduction you can get, and I'm still taking huge damage from Duke Fishron. But with the right timings on my dashes, Duke Fishron is quickly down. Now there's nothing I could have wanted from Duke Fishron except the wings, which I get first try, and they're warding. Talk about crazy luck. I mean, I do prefer Betsy wings, but between Empress wings, Duke wings, and Betsy wings, they're all pretty much the same level. The Duke wings are a really good all-arounder wing set. And with that, I headed over to the dungeon, and guess who wasn't there? The lunatic cultist. Where the heck is it? I cleared out all the sand that I could see in hopes that it would spawn the devotees, which it actually did. It actually worked instantly. I guess that's why they weren't spawning. I don't know. I thought they would have spawned in the blocks, but apparently not. I guess they don't like suffocation for some reason. What are they, freaking losers? What? So now taking on the lunatic cultist, it's not too bad. I'm circling with my witch's broom. I did opt to use the witch's broom here. I don't really need wings here, and the extra accessories are always good. The possessed hatchet is doing a treat up until the lunatic does its clones. Now I know that the possessed hatchet's gonna probably screw me over if I use it against the clone, so I switch over to the paladin's hammer to specifically hit the right one. After that, I just keep hitting it with the possessed hatchet, and really it's no problem. Even if I get hit by these projectiles, they don't do much damage up until the lunatic cultist gets to second phase or half health. That's when it starts shooting Prophecy's End and Ancient Light, which both do insane damage. I think they're contact hits on Legendary Mode, maybe, because the damage is crazy. So I just got to keep my distance from them, make sure I'm not getting hit, because I could die very quickly to those or take some big damage. I mean, one Prophecy's End split did 300 damage to me. Absolutely bonkers. But yeah, apart from that, there were no real issues this fight, and Lunatic Cultist defeated. Now with the Lunatic defeated, the pillars are here, so I went over to the solar pillar. I tried to cheese this, but it wasn't going too well. I still had to dodge crawltipedes and certain enemies, and sometimes they'd jump off the platform like maniacs and go for me and shoot fireballs at me. It was crazy. But after all the enemies were defeated and the shield was down, I built my way down so that I could hit it with the possessed hatchet without any enemies getting to me. Now I don't get anything from the solar pillar, even though it is the melee pillar. There's no solar boomerang, so I went straight to the vortex pillar. This is so easy to cheese. I just can't not do it. I just box myself in, and Paladin's hammer was going to work. work on these guys. And in no time, the Vortex Pillar was defeated. I then went over to the Stardust Pillar. This one also not hard to cheese with the star cells regenerating. Before I knew it, I'd already killed 100 star cells and I could destroy the pillar. After that, it's finally the Nebula Pillar. My least favorite pillar at this point used to be Solar, but Nebula just sucks. Everything here is so annoying and hits like a truck. I mean, Solar's worse for some playthroughs, but Nebula's just consistently bad every playthrough. Now, because my damage is low, this took forever of me just flying around, throwing my hatchet around, hitting the enemies with homing damage, and just repeating that. I mean, it took forever, but finally the Nebula Pillar was defeated with no deaths, and now impending doom approaches. Now, with the fragments, I made some super healing potions, buffed up, and awaited my doom. The Moonlord spawns, I'm instantly hitting the top eye as much as I can. Now, my choice of weapon here is Possessed Hatchet, as it's homing in on the enemies, but something annoying is sometimes the hatchet would go to the hand eye instead of the top eye. But I easily dodged the first death laser, no problems. I need to make sure I'm hitting the leeches, and I'm hitting the hands to equal out the damage. Top eye opens again, very easily with Soaring Insignia and Fishron Wings clear that laser, no issues at all. But I probably didn't do as much damage to the top eye as I wanted. Now, I knew that this fight would be a long haul Moonlord fight. The damage is just not good enough for this to be a quick Moonlord fight. I decided to use the Paladin's Hammer a bit to choose what I was hitting, the top eye. Then I switched back to the Possessed Hatchet because I was close enough to be hitting it. And then I go back to Paladin's Hammer to do some extra damage. I don't actually know which one does more damage, considering I didn't get a DPS meter this whole playthrough. Top eye open again, hit it. I mean, it's more of the same. I don't think I got hit by the death laser like once. My beetle armor is keeping me well and truly alive. Huge damage reduction here. Top eye is getting whittled down. It's at about half health now, which is pretty good progress. And after a long stretch of time, not getting hit by the top eye laser once, and balancing out the eye damage, the first eye to fall is the top eye. Then I'm trying to destroy the hands as quick as possible to get to the next stage of the fight. Left eye is destroyed first, and then the right eye only has a slither of health, but it's taking forever just to destroy this slither. And just like that, the Moonlord is on the core phase. And I mean, this is so simple. It's so easy at this point. I have enough range with the Possessed Hatchet that I can just stay at a distance and throw my Possessed Hatchet at the Moonlord while I'm just running with the Soaring Insignia. Really, there was no threat to my life at all. This fight is basically a Master Mode fight, since it is projectiles only, I think. Now, in 1.4.5, I believe they're bringing Moon Boulders into For the Worthy from Get Fixed Boy to make this fight a bit harder for the Worthy. That makes sense, and I wish that was here now for that little bit of extra challenge. I actually want that challenge for this Moonlord fight because it's a bit too easy, to be honest. I actually end up hitting the edge of the world. It's taking so long. The Possessed Hatchet is not doing that much damage. It's a little underwhelming, I'll be real. Once I've turned around, this is where I can actually get hit by the True Eye of Cthulhu's because of the way that the movement works. They were like lacking behind a lot, and now they've caught up to me. But at this point, I've just done enough damage that this fight's over. I mean, I get so confident, I go in with the Paladin's Hammer and I'm just taking hits. And I finish off the Moonlord with my Paladin's Hammer, making us the victors of Terraria Legendary Mode Boomerangs only. I then decided to take on the Queen Slime, which was kind of crazy, guys. Crazy fight. And then I took on Deerclops for a final challenge. I mean, it was really difficult, taking a lot of damage here, but we do finally defeat it on a measly 600 health. Thanks, guys, for watching the challenge. It was a decent amount of fun. Boomerangs are a little underwhelming. It's a ranged melee weapon. It'd be kind of unbalanced to do as much damage as like the swords. I say that, but then again, the Terrorblade is like super ranged and it does insane freaking damage. I think Boomerangs just suffer in that end of pre-hard mode and end of the game section. If in 1.4.5 they add new boomerangs, like a solo boomerang or something, or I don't know. If they add one, I'm gonna be upset because I just did this playthrough and 1.4.5 is right around the corner. Anyway, I'm excited for 1.4.5. Expect a lot of content on that. I'm definitely covering the Summoner class on 1.4.5 once that's out. It's gonna be awesome. Hopefully, I'm begging and pleading that they don't remove whip stacking. If they remove whip stacking, I will cry. But at least they're adding a bunch of stuff for the Summoner class regardless. Let me know what other challenges you want to see on the channel. Make sure to subscribe down below if you're not already, and I'll see you guys next time.